Hello, and welcome. We all see those sensational headlines, don't we? The one secret to living past 100, or the miracle food that stops aging. It's tempting to look for a quick fix, especially when we're in our 50s, 60s, and beyond, and we truly want to maximize our health span, those vibrant, active years. The title of this video asks, want to be healthy past 90? It's a bold question, and frankly, it often sounds like clickbait. But what if the answer wasn't a secret potion, but a set of proven, consistent practices? On this channel, I am not here to sell you magic. I'm here to dive into the hard science of aging well. We are dedicated to providing credible, actionable health information for those of us who value thriving in our later years. Today we are breaking down the 7 fundamental habits that longitudinal studies that follow people for decades, consistently link to a long and, more importantly, a healthy life. We're talking about preventing chronic disease, maintaining cognitive sharpness, and preserving the physical mobility to do the things you love. This isn't just theory, it's a roadmap. If you believe in living a vibrant life based on real science, do me a favor right now, click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our future deep dives. And I'd love to know where our community is tuning in from. Please drop your city or state in the comments below. Let's begin. Alright, let's dive into our very first habit, and it's a big one, mastering the blue zone plate. For many of us, especially in America, our relationship with food has been defined by the Western diet. This is a pattern high in processed meats, refined sugars, and saturated fats. We've been taught to obsess over counting calories, fearing carbs, or fearing fats, whatever the trend of the decade is. But the longest-lived, healthiest populations on Earth don't do this. Researchers studying blue zones, areas like Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, and Ikaria, Greece, found that people who thrive into their 90s and 100s aren't on a diet. Their culture is built around a specific way of eating. So what is the research focus here? It's not about one single miracle food. It's about the pattern. The principles of the Mediterranean and the DASH diets, backed by decades of epidemiological data, show a massive reduction in cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. The key concept is shifting your plate to be predominantly plant-forward and focused on nutrient density. This doesn't mean you must become a vegetarian or vegan. It means that the majority of your plate should be whole foods. So here is your core tip: practice the 80-20 rule. It's simple and sustainable. Aim for 80% of your meals to come from whole foods, vegetables, fruits, legumes like beans and lentils, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. Then, allow yourself 20% flexibility. This approach is about adding the good stuff in, not just obsessively removing the bad. Now, this leads to our critical warning. Please, avoid extreme, sudden dietary restrictions. If you are in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, your body is not the same as it was at 25. Suddenly going zero carb or adopting a radical restrictive diet overnight can be nutritionally risky, lead to muscle loss, and frankly, it's almost always unsustainable. The goal is not a quick fix. The goal is a lifelong pattern. Start small. This week, maybe just add one more serving of leafy greens to your day, or swap processed snacks for a handful of almonds. That is how you build a habit that lasts. We've addressed our plate, so now let's address our physical foundation. This brings us to habit number 2, move to maintain, and specifically, how we combat a condition called sarcopenia. Now, sarcopenia is a medical term you will be hearing a lot about, if you haven't already. It's simply the age-related involuntary loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. You might notice it as finding it a little harder to open a heavy jar, or feeling less steady when getting up from a low chair, or simply feeling that your balance isn't what it used to be. This is not just in your head. The science shows that after age 50, we can lose a significant percentage of our muscle mass every year, and this process accelerates dramatically if we are sedentary. This isn't about vanity. This isn't about looking like a bodybuilder. This loss of muscle is the single biggest driver of frailty, a primary cause of dangerous falls, a slower walking speed, and ultimately, the loss of our functional independence. Why? Because muscle is our metabolic currency. It's what allows us to move, to balance, and to interact with the world. Strong muscles also pull on our bones, which is critical for maintaining bone density and fighting osteoporosis. When we lose that muscle, we don't just get weaker, our metabolism slows down, making weight management harder, and our risk of a life-altering fracture goes up. The research focus here is undeniable. We are no longer just guessing. Longitudinal studies, the kind that follow thousands of people for decades, are crystal clear. It's not just about your cholesterol or your blood pressure. Our grip strength and our walking speed are now considered two of the most powerful predictors of future morbidity and longevity. Think about that. Your grip strength is a proxy for your entire body's strength. And your walking speed? It's considered a vital sign by many geriatricians because it tests your cardiovascular health, your neurological function, and your muscular strength all at once. Furthermore, the research has moved beyond just the physical. New studies in neuroscience show that when we engage in resistance training, our muscles release specific chemicals and growth factors, like BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which travel to the brain, cross the blood-brain barrier, and act as miracle-grow for our brain cells, protecting us against cognitive decline. So, what is the core tip? What do we do? The answer is simple: you must embrace resistance. Now, please hear me. I am not asking you to join a CrossFit gym or become a competitive powerlifter. We are talking about maintenance and functional strength. The goal is to aim for just 2 to 3 sessions per week of resistance training. That's it. This can be simple bodyweight exercises. Chair squats, where you stand up and sit down from a sturdy chair 10 times. Wall push-ups, where you lean against a wall and push back. Lunges while holding onto a counter for balance. These use your own body mass as resistance, and they are incredibly effective. This can be resistance bands. These are fantastic, portable, and gentle on the joints, allowing you to add challenge to simple movements. Or this can be light weights. And I want to bust a myth right now: you will not get bulky. This is a physiological impossibility for most people in this age range. What you will build is lean, dense, and highly functional muscle that protects you. The key is a principle called progressive overload. It just means that when 10 chair squats become easy, you try for 12. Or you try holding a small 1-pound weight. This gentle, gradual increase is what tells your body, I need this muscle. Don't let it go. But this leads directly to our critical warning. This is perhaps the most important part of this segment. The no pain, no gain mentality that some of us grew up with is dangerous for this demographic. Your new mantra must be, form over weight. It is infinitely better to do 10 perfect bodyweight squats than 5 sloppy ones with a heavy weight. An injury at 65 or 75 is not the same as an injury at 25. Recovery is slower, and a bad injury, like a rotator cuff tear or a knee problem, can be the one event that starts a spiral of inactivity. You must learn to distinguish between good muscle fatigue, that feeling of a dull burn or shakiness in the belly of the muscle, like your thigh, and sharp joint pain. Joint pain is a sharp, stabbing or pinching feeling, often in the joint itself, like your kneecap or the tip of your shoulder. If you feel that, you stop immediately. Finally, do not fall for the "it's too late" myth. Many people think, I'm 70, I've never lifted a weight, it's too late for me. The science proves this is absolutely false. Studies on 80 and 90-year-olds show they can still build muscle mass and strength. It is never too late to start. Remember, we aren't training for a marathon. We are training to be able to lift our groceries, play with our grandchildren, and get up out of a deep chair with ease when we are 90. We have discussed what we eat and how we move. But the third pillar of health, the one that is perhaps most frequently sacrificed, is our sleep. This brings us to habit number 3, the non-negotiable sleep protocol. For decades, we've been told that sleep is a passive activity. It's been seen as wasted time or a luxury. Many of us in the 50, 60, and 70-plus demographic come from a generation that glorified pulling an all-nighter or getting by on 5 hours. I'm here to tell you that the single most profound shift in longevity science over the past 20 years is our understanding that sleep is an active, critical, and non-negotiable metabolic and cognitive repair process. It is not passive rest. It is the night shift for your body and your brain, and it's when the most important maintenance work gets done. If you are not getting 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep, you are actively undermining your health, regardless of how well you eat or how much you exercise. The research focus in this area is stunning, so let's break down the 2 key areas: cognitive repair and metabolic health. First, let's talk about your brain. Neuroscience research has identified something called the glymphatic system. You can think of this as your brain's waste clearance system, or its dishwasher. During the day, as your brain works, it produces metabolic byproducts, or junk. One of these byproducts is a protein called beta amyloid. If that sounds familiar, it should. Beta amyloid plaque is the hallmark protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. Here's the critical part: the glymphatic system is 10 times more active when you are asleep than when you are awake. It is only during quality deep sleep that your brain's dishwasher can effectively flush these toxic proteins out of your neural pathways. When you consistently get less than 6 or 7 hours of sleep, you are, in effect, skipping that cleaning cycle, night after night, year after year. The link between chronic poor sleep and an increased risk of dementia is no longer a guess. It is one of the strongest connections in preventative neurology. Second, let's talk about metabolic health. Poor sleep is not just a brain problem, it's a whole body problem. When you are sleep deprived, your body goes into a state of high alert. Your cortisol, the stress hormone, levels are higher. This high cortisol signals your body to store fat, particularly that dangerous visceral fat around your midsection. Furthermore, lack of sleep devastates your hormonal balance, specifically the two hormones that control your appetite, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is the go hormone, it tells you you're hungry. Leptin is the stop hormone, it tells you you're full. Just one night of poor sleep causes your ghrelin levels to spike and your leptin levels to plummet. This means you will wake up feeling more ravenous, less satisfied by the food you do eat, and you will specifically crave high sugar, high fat, high carb foods. Your brain is desperately seeking a quick source of energy because it didn't get to refuel properly overnight. So, all that willpower you're trying to use to stick to your healthy eating plan? It's being sabotaged, not by a lack of character, but by a lack of sleep. So here is your core tip: you must develop a sleep wind-down ritual. You cannot expect to go from watching the nightly news or scrolling through stressful social media directly into deep restorative sleep. You must prepare your brain for rest. Your goal is consistency. This is the #1 rule. Aim to go to bed and wake up at the same time every single day, even on weekends. This anchors your body's natural circadian rhythm. About 1 hour before that bedtime, your wind-down ritual begins. This means screens off. The blue light from phones, tablets, and TVs directly inhibits your brain's production of melatonin, the sleep hormone. Instead, read a physical book. Listen to calm music. Take a warm bath or shower. The subsequent drop in your core body temperature actually triggers the sleep response. And make your bedroom a sanctuary. It must be cool, dark, and quiet. Now, we come to the critical warning. This is vital. Do not rely on prescription or over-the-counter sleep aids as a long-term solution. I want to be clear, these medications can be a lifesaver for a short-term crisis. But many of them provide sedation, not natural, restorative sleep. They can often suppress the deep sleep and REM sleep stages, which are the very stages where that glymphatic brainwashing and memory consolidation happen. You wake up feeling groggy, not rested. Worse, they are a band-aid. They mask the real, underlying problem. If you are in bed for 8 hours but you wake up exhausted every day, or your partner says you snore loudly and gasp for air, you may have an underlying condition like sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a serious condition where you briefly stop breathing many times an hour, starving your brain and heart of oxygen. It is a massive independent risk factor for high blood pressure and heart attacks. So do not just live with poor sleep as a normal part of aging. It is not normal. It is a red flag. Talk to your doctor. A sleep study might be the single most important test you ever take. Prioritizing sleep is not selfish. It is the foundation upon which your diet and exercise habits are built. It is your non-negotiable daily appointment for brain maintenance and metabolic health. We've covered diet, movement, and sleep. But there is a silent, invisible force that can sabotage all of our best efforts. This brings us to habit #4, mastering your stress before it masters you. Let's be very clear about what we mean by stress. Stress itself is not the enemy. A short-term stress response is a brilliant, ancient survival mechanism. If you're walking and a car suddenly swerves toward you, you need that instant jolt. Your sympathetic nervous system floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart pounds, your blood pressure rises, your muscles get a surge of sugar for fuel, all to help you jump back onto the curb. This is called an acute stress response, and it saves your life. The problem, in our modern world, is that this system never turns off. We are not running from predators. We are sitting in traffic. We are worrying about our finances. We are feeling isolated. We are watching a 24-hour news cycle designed to keep us anxious. For many of us, our bodies are in a permanent low-grade fight or flight state. This is chronic stress, and it is the real silent killer. The research focus in this area falls under a fascinating field called psychoneuroimmunology, or PNI. It's a long word, but it simply means the scientific study of how your mind, psycho, your brain and nervous system, neuro, and your immune system, immunology, all talk to each other. And what they found is that your thoughts and emotions have a direct, physical and measurable impact on your biology. Here's what happens. When you are chronically stressed, your body is continuously marinating in high levels of the stress hormone cortisol. In short bursts, cortisol is essential. But when it's high all the time, it becomes incredibly destructive. High cortisol signals your body to store that dangerous visceral fat around your organs. It constantly raises your blood sugar, pushing you toward insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. It keeps your blood pressure elevated, damaging your arteries and overworking your heart. Even more, chronic stress is like pouring gasoline on the fire of inflammation. And as we now know, chronic systemic inflammation is a root cause or a major contributor to almost every single age-related disease, heart disease, arthritis, autoimmune conditions, and even cognitive decline. But perhaps the most profound research is at the cellular level. Scientists who study aging look at telomeres. You can picture these as the little plastic tips on the ends of your shoelaces. Your DNA is the shoelace. The telomere is the protective cap that stops it from fraying. Every time your cells divide, those telomeres get a tiny bit shorter. This shortening is biological aging. The groundbreaking discovery is that chronic stress, the psychological, ruminating kind, measurably accelerates the shortening of your telomeres. This means that chronic worry doesn't just feel bad, it is literally, physically, making you age faster. So, here is your core tip: you must build a daily practice of conscious disengagement. The goal is not to eliminate stress. That's impossible. The goal is to get better at activating your rest and digest system, the parasympathetic nervous system, to recover from stress. You have to consciously flip the off switch. How? You have more power than you think. The simplest tool is your own breath. When you are stressed, your breathing is shallow and fast. When you deliberately slow down your exhale, you send a direct physical signal to your brain, via the vagus nerve, that you are safe. Just taking 60 seconds to breathe in for a count of 4, and out for a count of 6, can begin to lower your cortisol. Another tool is nature. Studies on forest bathing show that even 10 to 15 minutes in a park or a green space measurably lowers stress hormones and blood pressure. And finally, find a flow state. This is any activity that fully absorbs your attention, where you lose yourself, and the worried chatter in your mind goes silent. For you, this might be gardening, painting, woodworking, playing a musical instrument, or even doing a complex crossword puzzle. This is a form of active meditation. This brings us to our critical warning. First, as I mentioned, stress management does not mean stress avoidance. You need eustress, or good stress. This is the challenge of learning that new skill we'll talk about later, or solving a difficult problem. That kind of stress builds resilience and keeps your brain sharp. It's the unresolved, ruminating, helpless feeling stress that is toxic. But the second warning is the most important. Please do not dismiss persistent anxiety, hopelessness, or depression as just a normal part of getting older. It is not normal. If your feelings of dread, anxiety, or sadness are persistent, overwhelming, and interfering with your daily life, the tools I just mentioned may not be enough. This is a crucial sign. It is not a character flaw. It is a signal to seek professional support from a doctor, a therapist, or a counselor. Ignoring profound mental and emotional distress is just as dangerous as ignoring persistent chest pain. You must take it seriously. We have focused so far on the very physical pillars of health: our food, our muscles, our sleep, and our hormonal stress response. But the science of longevity is showing us, with increasing clarity, that some of the most powerful factors for a long and healthy life are not physical at all. This brings us to habit number 5, which I like to call vitamin S, social connection. In our modern, fast-paced and often isolating world, it's very easy to dismiss socializing as a luxury. It's something you do after all the important work is done. We prioritize our to-do lists, our errands, our finances, and we often let our friendships and community ties fall by the wayside. We have come to believe that loneliness is just an unfortunate emotional state. The hard science is here to tell us that it is a fatal biological condition. The research focus in this area is simply staggering, and it points to one of the most famous studies in medical history, the Harvard Study of Adult Development. This is a study that began in 1938 and has followed two groups of men for their entire lives, over 80 years. They have tracked their physical health, their mental health, their careers, their families, everything. And when the researchers, after 8 decades, compiled all the data to see what truly predicted who would be a healthy, happy 80-year-old, the answer was not their cholesterol levels at midlife. It wasn't their income. It wasn't their genetics. The single, most powerful predictor of long-term health and happiness was the quality of their close relationships. People who were more socially connected, to friends, to family, to community, were physically healthier, lived longer, and had sharper memories. Conversely, loneliness was found to be a profound, chronic stressor. The researchers found that loneliness and isolation were as toxic to our physical health as smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day. It was more dangerous than obesity. This is because, as human beings, we are biologically wired for connection. When we are isolated, our body perceives it as a threat. We go into that same fight or flight mode we discussed earlier. Our cortisol levels rise, our inflammation skyrockets, and our sleep quality plummets. Loneliness, quite literally, breaks you down. So, here is your core tip: you must proactively schedule social interaction. As we get older, social connection no longer happens automatically. We have to work for it. Do not wait for the phone to ring, you be the one to pick it up. Join a club. Volunteer for a cause you believe in, which is a fantastic way to meet people who share your values. Set up a recurring weekly coffee date or a regular phone call with a friend or family member. Put it in your calendar just like you would a doctor's appointment, because it is just as important for your health. This leads us to our critical warning. Do not allow major life transitions, especially retirement or geographic separation from family, to lead to isolation. Retirement can be a major risk factor if it means you've lost your primary social network, your colleagues, overnight. You must have a plan for what you are retiring to, not just what you are retiring from. And secondly, while digital connection like email, text, and even video calls are good, they are not a complete substitute for the metabolic benefits of face-to-face, in-person interaction. There is a different, more powerful hormonal cascade, think oxytocin, the bonding hormone, that happens when you are physically in the room with someone, sharing an experience. Investing in your relationships is not selfish. It is not a luxury. It is a biological necessity for a long, healthy, and meaningful life. We have covered our physical bodies, our stress levels, and our social foundations. Now we must turn to the command center for all of this, our brain. This brings us to habit number 6, never stop learning. For a very long time, it was believed that the brain was fixed. We thought that by the time you reached middle age, your brain was set, and it was all downhill from there. We assumed that cognitive decline was simply a one-way street. The science of neuroplasticity has completely overturned this assumption. Neuroplasticity is the proven scientific fact that your brain is not fixed. It is plastic, it can and does reorganize itself, form new connections, and create new pathways, at any age, in response to new learning. This leads to the research focus, which is the vital concept of cognitive reserve. Think of cognitive reserve as your brain's emergency fund, or its resilience network. As we age, our brain, like any organ, will sustain some wear and tear. Some neural pathways may slow down or become damaged. People with a high cognitive reserve are those whose brains have built so many redundant, alternative pathways, so many different roads to get to the same destination, that when one road is closed due to damage, the brain simply and automatically reroutes the traffic down another pathway. They can sustain more physical damage before any functional decline in memory or thinking becomes noticeable. So, how do we build this reserve? The research is clear: we build it through novel and complex learning. It's about forcing your brain to do something new and hard. This is our core tip: you must challenge your brain, don't just entertain it. There is a critical difference between passive, familiar tasks and active, difficult learning. Doing the daily crossword puzzle or Sudoku is fine. It's like a light walk for your brain, it keeps existing pathways active. But it is not building new pathways. Building new pathways, building reserve, comes from the struggle. It comes from the feeling of being a beginner again. It's the feeling of being bad at something before you get good at it. This means activities like learning a new musical instrument, or trying to learn a new language, or taking an online class on a complex subject you know nothing about, or even learning a complex new skill like digital photography or coding. This effortful learning forces your brain to build new resilient neural networks. This brings us to our critical warning. Please do not fall for the self-fulfilling prophecy that significant cognitive decline is inevitable. It is not. Let's be precise, cognitive slowing is normal. It might take you a bit longer to recall a name or a fact than it did at 30. That is a normal part of aging. But significant persistent memory loss, forgetting major events, getting lost in familiar places, being unable to follow a conversation, or profound changes in personality, this is not normal. These are red flags. Do not dismiss these signs in yourself or a loved one. Talk to a medical professional. We have to stop confusing a common disease, like Alzheimer's, with the normal aging process. They are not the same thing. Your brain is designed to learn, grow, and adapt for your entire life. Your job is to give it the challenge it needs to stay strong. We have now arrived at our 7th and final habit. We've covered our physical health, our mental health, and our social health. But this last piece may be the most important of all, because it is the engine that powers all the other 6 habits. This is habit number 7, find your why, also known as developing a deep sense of purpose. The Japanese have a word for this, ikigai, which roughly translates to a reason for being, or your reason to get out of bed in the morning. For a long time, this was considered soft science, a nice philosophy, but not serious medicine. That has changed completely. We now know from overwhelming data that your why has a direct, measurable, and profound impact on your how long you live, and how well you live. The research focus here is powerful. Let's look at the Rush Memory and Aging Project, a massive study that has followed thousands of older adults for decades. The researchers at Rush regularly asked participants to rate their agreement with simple statements like, "I feel good when I think about what I've done in the past and what I hope to do in the future," or "I have a sense of direction and purpose in my life." When they cross-referenced this data with the participants' health records, the findings were astounding. People who reported a higher sense of purpose in life had a significantly reduced risk of heart attack. They had a lower risk of stroke. And most incredibly, they were more than 2 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. Even when researchers autopsied the brains of participants who had passed away, they found that some people who had the physical plaques and tangles of Alzheimer's disease did not show the symptoms of memory loss while they were alive, if they had maintained a high sense of purpose. Their why was literally protecting their brain. Why? There are 2 reasons. First, the behavioral reason. When you have a strong purpose, you automatically take better care of yourself. You are more likely to do all the other things we've discussed, eat well, stay mobile, get good sleep, because you have a reason to show up healthy and strong tomorrow. Second, the biological reason. Purpose acts as a natural buffer against chronic stress. When you are driven by a why, the daily setbacks and stressors have less of a negative impact. This leads to lower inflammation and healthier cortisol levels. So, here is your core tip: you must consciously define your why, especially after major life changes. For many, our purpose was tied to our career or to raising a family. But what happens after retirement? What happens when the children are grown? This is when you must actively define your next chapter. Your purpose does not have to be grand. It just has to be yours. It could be mentoring a younger person in your former field. It could be volunteering for a local cause you are passionate about. It could be the vital role of caregiving for grandchildren, or a spouse. It could be pursuing a long-lost passion, like writing, gardening, or mastering that instrument we talked about. This brings us to our critical warning. Retirement, while eagerly anticipated, can be one of the most dangerous health risks a person can face if it means a total loss of purpose, structure, and identity. Many people know what they are retiring from: the job, the alarm clock, the commute. But they have no plan for what they are retiring to. This void is a major risk factor for depression, cognitive decline, and physical inactivity. You must have a plan. You must not just retire from your old life, you must make a conscious plan to retire to your new one. Your why is your North Star. It's what makes the other 6 habits worth the effort, day in and day out. So we have now walked through all 7 of the core habits: the blue zone plate, moving to maintain, the sleep protocol, stress mastery, social connection, lifelong learning, and a deep sense of purpose. But before we conclude, we must discuss one final, critical concept. This is part 9, the synergistic effect. It is very tempting to look at these 7 habits as a simple checklist, like a menu at a restaurant where you can pick 3 from column A and 2 from column B and still get a passing grade. But that is not how your biology works. Your body is not a collection of separate parts. It is one single, deeply interconnected system. These habits are not à la carte. They are a framework, and their true profound power is not found in isolation. It is found in how they amplify one another. The research focus here is the principle of systems biology. It's a way of looking at health that understands you cannot change one part of the system without, in some way, impacting all the other parts. The easiest way to see this is by looking at a negative cascade. Let's say you fail at habit 3, sleep. You only get 5 hours of fragmented, poor-quality sleep. What happens next? You wake up with your stress hormone, cortisol, already high. So you failed at habit 4, stress, before you're even out of bed. Because your cortisol is high and your sleep was poor, your appetite hormones are completely disrupted. Your hunger hormone, ghrelin, is high, and your fullness hormone, leptin, is low. This means you have intense cravings for high-sugar, high-fat foods, which completely sabotages your plan for habit 1, the blue zone plate. Because you are tired and your diet is poor, you have no physical energy. The last thing you want to do is your resistance training for habit 2, movement. And because you are tired, stressed, and running on sugar, you are irritable. You snap at your spouse or you cancel that lunch with a friend, weakening habit 5, social connection. In this state, is your brain ready for habit 6, learning? Absolutely not. Do you see? One broken habit didn't just cause one problem. It created a domino effect that brought down the entire structure for that day. But the magic is that this cascade works just as powerfully in the positive direction. This brings us to our core tip: find your keystone habit. A keystone habit is the one habit that, when you do it, makes all the other habits fall into line more easily. For many people, that keystone habit is sleep. When you finally prioritize your 8 hours, you wake up with energy, your hormones are balanced, your cravings are gone, and you have the mental clarity to make good choices all day. For others, the keystone habit is movement. Just starting with that 10-minute morning walk clears your head, manages your stress, and helps you sleep better that night. You do not have to fix all 7 habits at once. You just have to find the first domino. This leads to our critical warning, and it is the most important one in this entire video. You must, at all costs, avoid all-or-nothing thinking. After hearing all of this, it is so easy to feel overwhelmed. It's easy to think, this is impossible. I'm already failing. Why even bother starting? That perfectionist mindset is the enemy of progress. This is not a pass/fail test. Doing 30% of these habits consistently is infinitely better and healthier than attempting 100%, burning out, and quitting after 1 week. If you only manage to add 1 extra glass of water and a 10-minute walk, you are winning. If you just focus on your sleep, you are winning. Start small. Be consistent. And forgive yourself on the off days. The goal is not perfection. The goal is persistence. So there we have it. The 7 core science-backed habits, and the crucial understanding of how they work together, that consistently point the way toward a long, a healthy, and a truly vibrant life. As we've seen, it is not about finding one magic pill. It is not about a 30-day challenge or a revolutionary biohack. It is about the fundamental daily work of nourishing your body with a whole food blue zone plate. It is about respecting your body enough to move and maintain your strength. It's about treating sleep as a non-negotiable repair cycle, mastering your chronic stress response, and actively building your social connections. It is about staying curious enough to build your cognitive reserve, and living with a why that is strong enough to pull you forward. If you take only one single lesson away from this entire video, let it be this: consistency trumps intensity. Living well into your 90s is not the result of a few perfect, heroic weeks of effort. It is the simple cumulative product of thousands of good enough days, stacked together, year after year. Do not be discouraged if you have an off day or an off week. We all do. The goal is not, and has never been, perfection. The goal is persistence. You are building the framework for a resilient life, and that takes patience and self-compassion. We are all on this journey together. And my final question for you is this: What is the one new habit, even the smallest one, that you are going to focus on starting this week? Maybe it's just swapping one soda for a glass of water. Maybe it's doing 5 chair squats during a commercial break. Or maybe it's scheduling that one phone call to a friend. Let us all know in the comments below. Your commitment is powerful, and reading your intentions inspires this entire community. Finally, if you found this information valuable and credible, please click the like button and share this video with someone you care about. It truly helps the channel grow and reach others who need to hear this science-based message. Thank you so much for watching, and be well.